Yes, I have been temporarily suspended from Twitter. And it happened right after I sent a tweet about Pete Buttigieg, even though they went all the way back to March and made my ban about 3D printed guns. So, that is the wrong microphone. No wonder it's weird. So, I think it was pretty clear that what I tweeted about Buttigieg wasn't a violation, and so they went back to March and tried to find a violation. But they only found one tweet in a whole half dozen thread of tweets to complain about. So, that's interesting. They're demanding that I remove the tweet, be reinstated, which I, of course, will not do.
Plenty of sunshine for the rest of the day, with temperatures warming up to 78 degrees. Could have an isolated shower.
I'll have a blog post about it later. But it was a whole tweet about 3D printed guns and things like that.
First Warning Neighborhood Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Emily Kennedy.
Right now it's 79 at the 95.3 MNC studios. I'm John Zimby.
Frankly, I'm surprised that Twitter doesn't ban me more, to be perfectly honest with you.
When your hands are full, her ears are open. 95.3 MNC on Alexa, and now on the Google Home smart speaker.
Oh, I'm sure, Alex. There's two trolls that are on Twitter. One of them is also on Facebook, that Michael guy. And they probably went through everything and reported it. I'm sure that they did.
My name's Dave Titus with International RV in Elkhart, Indiana. You know, one of the things
yeah,
that are really concerned with is whether
they started it, and then she was real upset that I was smacking her around quite a bit, figuratively, of course.
We have units that start at $100 a month. It's all about the fun, sitting around the campfire with your wife in the evening, or with your kids, or taking that stroll on the beach, or having that private weekend that it really didn't cost you hardly any money, but you had a great time. We'll do any type of service warranty repair, whether it be from a small appliance repair, cabinets rework, plumbing, air conditioning, all the way up to full collisions, new roofs, new slide outs. There's absolutely nothing associated
So,
with
Comets,
that we can't fix in my service department.
Donna, we got Mike, got Stymie, Alex, Daisy, Gerald.
The majority of them have been with me for years. Find it's 2 miles north of the bypass on Highway 19 in
Yeah. I keep meaning to go to that Blackwell guy's Twitter and search for the word infest.
You gotta move fast.
Because he cried about it and said that word was racist on CNN the other day.
Just as fast to the Ford Hurry Up and Save sales event. Because for the first time ever, you can get 20% estimated savings on select Ford vehicles. Plus, earn complimentary maintenance through Ford Pass Rewards. Don't let this hot deal on America's best-selling brand pass you by. Get into the Ford Hurry Up and Save sales event. Based on 2010 through 2018 calendar year sales, modem must be activated within 60 days of purchase through the Ford Pass app.
No, I'm not really worried about Twitter's streaming capabilities. Like I said, I don't even spend a lot of time on it.
Vehicle must have arrived at dealer at least 61 days prior to the sale date. Estimated savings include an average dealer discount.
Like I said before, every time I get over 7,000 followers, they take 5,000 to 7,000 away. So I had over 10,000 once, they took 7,000 away. I had over 7,000 the next time, they took 5,000 away. There was another time they took like 3 or something like that. So it's like, they clearly don't want me on the platform. They won't verify me or anything. All right, here we go.
This is Casey Hendrickson on News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel, your breaking news and weather station.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Phone number 574-25-95-95.3. That is 2595-953. You can also send a text message to 45364. Please put MNC at the beginning of that message. We are live streaming at youtube.com/Casey the host. Please go there and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, while you're there, make sure you register for the Black Rifle Coffee giveaway. I'm giving away 2 bags of Liberty Blend Black Rifle Coffee free to 2 subscribers on YouTube. You can even get extra entries by following the directions in the contest. I would also like to thank our sponsor, Second Amendment Arms and Range. Today's Tuesday, which means tomorrow, kids shoot free with a shooting parent. Go to secondamendmentarms.net for more information. Black Lives Matter is circulating a petition calling on South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg to fire Police Chief Scott Ruskowski, citing continued misconduct among the police department. Okay. The group says that the public record indicates that Chief Ruskowski stated on the record in March of 2018 that officers were required to turn their body cameras on. They say that in January of this year, he was aware that there were officers who were not doing so. I've already pulled up the guidelines for everybody. I guess that, I don't know if they were too lazy to do that or what. So anyway, this is what Black Lives Matter sent to news agencies like ours. A New York-based firm conducted a survey and found that levels of trust among South Bend residents and our local police force is low. This is a clear sign the South Bend residents have lost confidence in our current police leadership. I would like to remind everybody that Black Lives Matter was the group, or I should say some individuals in that group, that posted the photo, the painting, if you will, several years ago of one of their activists slitting the throat of a police officer while he was on his knees. And Facebook determined that that was not a violation of their policies. I posted the same thing just to tell everybody what they were doing, and it was a violation of their policies because I got suspended. Therefore, we call on Mayor Pete Buttigieg to exercise his executive power by demoting or removing current chief Scott Ruskowski from his post. We are lifting this demand by way of our petition to fire Chief of Police Scott Ruskowski for the continued misconduct among the police force. By the way, if you look at the record, there hasn't been a lot of recent misconduct at all. A lot of this goes back to previous administrations and things like that, where you had questionable issues. So they list 2 items here. Public records indicate Chief Scott Ruskowski stated on record in March of 2018 that officers were required to turn on their body cameras. And again, that depends on the situation and everything else. Remember, we talked to Harvey Mills, who is the president of the South Bend Fraternal Order of Police. He talked about the call being a low priority call. Okay. In which case you are not required to do that. There is a policy change that the mayor asked for and has now been implemented. 2, Chief Scott Ruskowski knew back in January of this year, 2019, that officers were not activating their body cameras. And again, they're leaving a bunch of stuff out. You're not required to activate them all the time. All right. Now, the policy has changed after this incident. But prior to that, there was no policy that they had to have them on all the time that I'm aware of. Okay. And like I said, it was one of the questions that I had initially because a lot of departments will mandate that you have the camera on when you have any contact with the public. So I'd mentioned that. And then I ended up finding out that with certain types of calls, you're not required to have it on. You don't have to have it on. So, and that appears to be where this fell into place. Again, I want to point out, they're calling for the police chief to be fired when the police chief didn't do anything. And they are doing this because the officer who defended himself against a knife-wielding assailant didn't have his camera on. They're still ignoring the fact that there was a guy breaking into cars, stealing stuff, and had a knife in his hand. They're still ignoring that evidence. Let's see. So they provide March 18, 2018, Board of Public Safety minutes. Chief stated the policy will be number 425 of the Police Duty Manual. Plan on doing rollouts of the body cameras in May or June. This is back when South Bend was still testing and everything, and they were looking to do the full rollout. Mr. Pawlowski questioned how they will handle those and those that forget to turn on their cameras. Is there a policy in place? Chief stated that this will be handled as they always have, noting they weigh the circumstances on an individual situation, which I guess would apply here. Attorney Colborn noted that these will still be subject to confidentiality laws and subject to APRA records. Mr. Collins questioned how long the videos will be kept. Ms. Colborn stated the bare minimum of 2 years. Mr. Daryl Heller, the IUSB, asked if the duty manual will be available to the public. Attorney Colborn stated yes, subject to the APRA request being submitted. Mr. Heller asked the chief to explain the policy on using the body cameras. The chief stated that it is no different from how they do it now. He noted the camera will go back 30 seconds from activation of the lights. He stated everyone will be required to turn it on, noting the only thing still being worked on is use inside of a house due to any privacy issues. And that's a huge issue in a lot of departments, is when they go into these homes, you're on private property now. You're not in the public, and there are privacy concerns and issues there if you're recording with those things. So again, they're still not applying all of this with the full policy. They're going back to 2018 and everything else. So they're just kind of ignoring what's actually happening. And so they're just basically calling for the chief's head, in spite of the fact that he wasn't there that night, doesn't have any responsibility for any of this. As angry protesters questioned Mayor Pete Buttigieg's leadership on race relations and police accountability last month in a wake of fatal shooting by South Bend police officer, this is a different story now. The mayor said that he wanted to hear from more community voices. We are here to have tough conversations, Buttigieg said during a town hall meeting at Washington High School, where he basically said that policing was racist. Anyway, on Monday, the city revealed parts of its plan to do just that, announcing a series of community meetings to gather input from the public on the South Bend Police Department policies that govern body cameras, the use of force, and vehicle chases, as well as the department's training and recruitment practices. Okay. So according to a news release issued by the mayor's office, input gathered at the 7 moderated discussions will be presented to the City Board of Public Safety for review and possible implementation. So they're going to have 7 of these things where you can get together with your community members and you can tell them how things should be done and offer advice on how you would like to see things done. And they will take that all back and they will present it to the board, and the board will take a look at what may be worth implementing. City spokesman Monday declined requests for interviews with both Buttigieg and Chief Ruskowski. Mark Bode, the spokesman for the mayor's office, released a written statement on Buttigieg's behalf. Building confidence between community members and law enforcement requires everyone to be involved. I actually posted a tweet from Buttigieg right after the judge ruled that he could release one of those police tapes. And he talked about how the impression that there is, I'm paraphrasing here, the impression that there is discrimination in policing is something that we all have to deal with. And I guess, was that 2014, 2015, something like that? This is an opportunity for residents both to understand and to help shape our public safety policies. To move forward, we must empower residents, and these meetings provide an excellent opportunity to make progress together. Reached by phone, Board of Public Safety President John Collins declined to comment on the upcoming meeting, saying that the board's members speak publicly only through the board's attorney. Tensions over policing have been high in South Bend since June 16th, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Critics have faulted Buttigieg for failing to achieve some reforms, such as increasing the diversity of the city's police force. About 6% of the department's officers are black, while a quarter of South Bend's population is black. Others, such as Common Council members Regina Williams-Preston, said Buttigieg had put off calls to establish a new citizen review board to look into cases of possible police misconduct. At the town hall meeting last month, Williams-Preston also said the mayor ought to seek advice from a broader range of leaders in the African-American community. Why? What qualifications do they have? Why does he only have to reach out to the African-American community? Why doesn't he have to reach out to all of the other communities? Maybe he should just, be a mayor of an entire city instead of just one group of people. It's an idea. I'm floating the idea out there, ladies and gentlemen. What an absolute mess all of this is. We got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
On your radio at 95.3 FM, online at 95.3mnc.com, and on your smart speaker when you enable the 95.3 MNC skill on Alexa. Casey Hendrickson.
News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
What's up, Kathy?
Breaking news and
What?
weather stations.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
By the Prime Table in Niles, 25 years of exceptional food, tremendous service, and great people. Visit Prime Table today for breakfast, lunch,
I should pull it. I should pull that card.
Now, home comfort experts.
Why the heck not?
Professionals 5-day forecast.
Areas of dense fog this morning could slow down the commute.
What a giant activist riddled cluster F we have going on here.
Skies turning mostly sunny this evening. We'll have temperatures warm up right
See,
around
the can's
78
too big
degrees
for
that daytime high. For tonight, lows do drop.
Oh, dude, you grab me one? Here, I'll pay you. It's in my oh, it's in my bag. No.
No. 76 degrees with mostly sunny skies, and really that beautiful weather continues through the rest of the work week. Our temperatures remain below average all the way through Friday. On Saturday, finally making it back to the 80 degree mark.
Sure.
And the sunshine continues throughout the weekend.
I thought I had a 5.
Comfortable.
I guess my wife rated it.
In the
Oh, well.
57 for a 40 neighborhood weather
Thanks,
center,
buddy.
I'm meteorologist Ellie Kennedy.
That was nice of him. I was just saying, I was like, I need a white monster, like, bad. And he went and got me one. Dude, I rode the motorcycle so friggin' much today. I took 3 or 4 different detours today, just so I could be on it longer. And yeah, had an idiot run right into my lane, right out in front of me as I was making a left-hand turn. Friggin' moron. Huh? I pulled up and I glared at him, but he wouldn't look at me. He had a big red 1 patch on the back of his car, and if he had his window down, I was going to tell him that he was a disgrace to all 11 Bravos, which would have cut him to the core. So.
During Summer Restaurant Week, we'll go to Beacon Children's Hospital. You don't need a special reason. Restaurants are serving breakfast, brunch, lunch, dinner, desserts, and...
I was supposed to do a restaurant interview last week, and I got so friggin' bogged down with all of this other crap, I forgot to do it.
And a complete list of restaurants, go to eatdrinkdtsb.com. That's eatdrinkdtsb.com. Mark your calendars to visit downtown South Bend for Summer Restaurant Week, Monday, July 22nd through Sunday, August 4th, and Eat Drink Downtown South Bend for Summer Restaurant Week 2019. Taste the difference.
Well, I'll finish my coffee, and then I'll have my monster. Locomotive air horns, yeah.
It's the staff that's in the photo. Behind the scenes in the office.
Well, I was coming out of the post office, and I had waited for a vehicle, friggin' BMW, of course, that would not go. They were at the intersection before me. They were making a left, and I was making a left, so we were going to do one of these things, right? And I kept telling her to go. She kept yapping and yapping and yapping, because I'm not going to pull out in front of her, because she's going to pull out and then hit me. And I know it. She's driving a BMW, for crying out loud. So I finally get her to go, and then this guy just like speeds up, like doesn't even stop, pulls right out, doesn't stay in his lane, pulls into my lane, and just friggin' it. He was staring right at me too.
522-4444. That's 574-522-4444. Let us take the guesswork out of your project and help you sleep easy. You've got better things to do. Let us hook you up. Find Final Phase.
You're Alex with the period. So you bleed for 7 days or what? What's the deal with that?
To houses all across America, there's one issue that everyone agrees must be dealt with immediately. Prescription drug prices are out of control. The big drug companies set prices so high, many people have to choose between buying medicine.
I did rewatch that transgender lady assaulting that that black Republican camera guy when they were doing an Antifa protest, and he beat the tar out of him.
And it absolutely must end.
We want to bring our prices down to what other countries are paying.
Senator Young, thank you for standing with the president and standing with us to help lower prescription drugs.
Well, I guess I'll pull up my text messaging, huh?
More work to do. AARP strongly supports your continued efforts to stop the greed. Cut prescription drugs.
Liberty Blend, and it's free. Fantastic. If you win. If you win, it's free. But you gotta be a subscriber. How many subs am I up to? Only today and tomorrow in July. 2082. Not too shabby.
Sale prices are good through Saturday, August 3rd. Now, during Menards, Red Hot Sales.
Alright, here we go. More South Bend stuff. good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Phone number 574-25-95-95.3. That is 2595-953. Do want to thank R&B Car Company, locations in South Bend and Warsaw. R&B Car Company are your used car experts. Somebody sent me a text that says, wait a minute, Liberty Blend and it's free? Fantastic. It is free if you win. And there's going to be 2 winners. You have to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Casey the host. There is a video on how to win the Black Rifle coffee for free. Just follow the directions there. The only requirement is that you are a subscriber of my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Casey the host, which we're live streaming at right now anyway. So you might as well go hang out there and hit that subscribe button. All right. So the South Bend Common Council also would like some public input on a few things. Candidates often stressed it in this year's Democratic mayoral primary campaigns, as have Mayor Pete Buttigieg's critics as he runs for president. The downtown has new life, but what about the struggling neighborhoods beyond the city's core? What can or should the city do about their crime, poverty, and crumbling streets, sidewalks, and curbs? Well, I have many suggestions. I railed over a few of them the other day with a buddy who was a little surprised and shocked that I had so many ideas about South Bend. It has tremendous potential. You just got to actually have somebody willing to do it. Anyway, as it prepares to start work on next year's budget, the Common Council Monday night began seeking public input on such questions when its Residential Neighborhoods Committee held a meeting in one of those distressed neighborhoods at the Charles Black Recreational Center. Renovated last year by the city at a cost of $4.4 million, the committee, chaired by council member Karen White, broke the discussion down into 5 areas. Now, before we get into this thing, okay, I don't know a lot about the Charles Black Recreational Center, okay? But since we renovated it for $4.4 million, is that $4.4 million that could have gone towards the things that they're now complaining about while they're sitting in the newly renovated Charles Black Recreational Center? Again, I'm just asking questions here because I don't know a lot about it. Recreational centers are cool and everything. Don't get me wrong, and it's always nice that people have a place to go. But if it's $4.4 million and you're dealing with, roads and a whole bunch of other things, crime obviously is a huge thing, youth engagement and employment, because that $4.4 million have been better spent. Was it necessary to do the renovation at the Charles Black Recreational Center, or was it a political pet project? Anyway, here are the 5 areas that they want input on. Economic development, because South Bend sucks at that. Affordable housing, okay? Youth engagement and employment, neighborhood infrastructure, and public safety and wellness. So there were 60 people who attended, which actually isn't that bad. And a facilitator and recorder for each topic area rotated every 15 minutes around the 5 groups, which were arranged in chair circles. It's like high school. You can sit in a circle and talk to your group, and then you present your project to the class or something. I don't know. It's, some guidance counselor or something was hired to do this, right? To lead this whole thing. Anyway, the facilitators asked questions with guided discussion while the recorders took notes. During the public safety and wellness breakout session, the Reverend David Ryle Biggs Sr., who's pastor at Cultivating Life Ministries, said Westside residents will only be empowered if the city and police listen to and act upon their tips about drug activity and crime. Okay, Reverend, what's the number one complaint that the police department has with people in the city? They don't call in those tips. Okay? That's the thing. Every time I talk to law enforcement, including the police chief, every time I talk to them, they go, we can't get anybody to talk to us about anything. If there's a gunshot that's fired, nobody will say anything. Nobody will call us. That's why we need ShotSpotter, which I think is a huge waste of money. But again, the police chief and others say, well, yeah, but nobody calls us. Nobody will tell us what's going on. So we have to have that to even know where something happened. I hear the same thing about drug deals. The same exact thing. So the Reverend says the police have to listen to people when they call about these things. The police say, nobody calls us. So maybe, perhaps, I don't know who's telling the truth. I'm sure there's a little bit of truth on both of them. But perhaps, maybe, Reverend, you could go ahead and go into your community and encourage people to contact the police more. And then at least we know that that angle is being covered somewhat. Now, whether they choose to contact the police or not, that's entirely up to the individual. But I've repeatedly heard this year after year after year after year. In South Bend in particular, they do not call the police about these issues. Anyway, our neighborhoods and areas in the 2nd District over along Lincoln Way and Western Avenue, totally disenfranchised from the economic growth of the city of South Bend. Biggs said, in these neighborhoods, you want people to say, okay, I can pull up to my doors, pull up my bootstraps and I can make it. And you haven't put any type of investment in these communities. Now, he's got a point there. There's not a lot of investment in those communities, but to be fair, there's not a lot of investment in South Bend either. Like I said, we just had to have the council pass a bunch of tax abatements for crying out loud to keep, was it 3 or 5 big businesses to stay in the limits after the last election. The city administration, which sent several representatives, erected a poster board in one corner of the room with a map that identified city spending levels in different parts of the city spending levels in different parts of the city over the past 4 years. During a neighborhood infrastructure session, people were more interested in discussing their inability to afford home repairs rather than the city's care of streets, curbs, and sidewalks. That's interesting. So people are not able to afford repairing their house, and they're more concerned about repairing their own house than the state of the roads. There's some things that I suppose could be said about that, but the city last year launched an exterior home repair grant program, something that some residents who attended Monday night seemed not to know about. We did talk about it, but we also, I think, did a story where when we had interviewed people about it, they weren't well aware of it. It wasn't something that is routinely advertised. And so maybe part of what the city can do with stuff like that is help market it a little bit better. Sometimes in the group discussions, people talked about things that the city doesn't control, such as the need for schools to emphasize vocational trades. The city does not do that. Let's see. Despite a relatively large amount of bonded debt from projects such as the $21 million Smart Streets Initiative, and again, talk about money that could have been better used elsewhere. Let's see. And a $500 million park system overhaul amid declining revenue caused by state-mandated property tax curbs. White said that the city can afford some new spending programs. And they always blame the state property tax cap for it. But it's weird because everybody's tax revenue keeps going up. It's very strange. I think what we have to do now is based on our priorities. What are the priorities and where should the monies go? White said. I'm saying that it needs to go into neighborhoods. We've got to make it happen. So basically what we have is we have a 7-round public discussion about these 5 areas: economic development, affordable housing, youth engagement and employment, neighborhood infrastructure, and public safety and wellness. So they're going to do this, I guess, 7 times. And at the end of it, nothing is going to get accomplished. None of these things are going to be implemented. It's not going to be anything. This is the realist in me. It's not even pessimistic. It's just a realist in me. I've seen too many of these public discussion things happen in multiple cities. And they always say they're going to propose it to somebody and they're going to look it over and they, pretend to, but they don't actually do any of the stuff that they're talking about. So whether or not this actually improves anything, I don't know. But there's a whole bunch of things that could be done in South Bend. They're just choosing not to do it because, well, it takes work and it takes effort and that sort of thing. And they'd rather just pin the blame on the state of Indiana, which, by the way, there's a lot of cities and towns in the state of Indiana who are doing just fine since those property tax caps. It's kind of weird how that happens, how they're doing okay and South Bend's not. You got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
This is Michiana's breaking news and weather station. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's.
Oh, hey, the boombox. Boomer's not going to make any money. Boomer is designed to save money, is what they said. It's going to save over a 10-year lifespan. It will finally save money. But annually it will not save money for many, many years. But then you have to buy into the claim that it's got a 10-year lifespan, which I am unaware of any speaker sound system that has a 10-year lifespan. So They usually die after 3 to 5. Then you have to go ahead and overhaul it. It becomes a whole thing. It's
earlier this month by a hacker who got a hold of data going back to 2005. 33-year-old Paige Thompson was arrested by Seattle authorities after leaving an extensive digital footprint of her alleged crime on the internet, including boasting about it online. But if you're a Capital One customer, you may be wondering, what now? The company says it will be notifying everyone who is impacted, and they'll get free credit monitoring and identity protection. You'll also want to keep an eye on your bank and credit card statements, and you might want to consider freezing your credit, which means nobody will be able to access your credit.
You get your news here now. Woo! That's a burden.
Through the 3 major credit bureaus.
That's 95.3 MNC's Tommy Lee reporting.
Fox News, I'm Karen McHugh. A disgruntled employee shoots and kills 2 at a Mississippi Walmart.
The 2 people shot and killed by the gunman were store employees. South Bend Police Chief Macon Moore says officers searched and found the gunman in a parking area. After shooting one of the officers, Chief Moore said the shooter encountered a second cop.
He was struck twice by gunfire from our officer.
The shooter was then arrested and taken to a hospital.
Fox's Gernal Scott. Just how serious was that data breach of Capital One?
It's one of the biggest breaches of a bank in history. An FBI complaint says the hacker got information including social security numbers and credit scores of about 140,000 of those people. 33-year-old Paige Thompson, she's allegedly accessed the bank's data back in March through a faulty firewall. Now, she was caught after leaving a digital trail of her alleged crime on the internet and bragging about it online.
Fox's Robert Gray. This is Fox News.
I am looking at the budget information. Hold on a sec.
We get free ice cream with our meal.
Now, Home Comfort Experts, your air conditioning professionals' first warning forecasts.
Plenty of sunshine for the rest of the day, with temperatures warming up to 78 degrees. Could have an isolated shower or 2, but most of you stay dry. Tonight, underneath clear skies, our temperatures do drop down to 54. And then tomorrow, plenty of sunshine from sunup to sundown with a high of 76. And the ABC 57 First Warning Neighborhood Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Kennedy.
This is Who's Your Ag Today and the Tuesday closing farm market report. And we did have a turnaround Tuesday today after a higher move, but an unimpressive one on Monday. The bearish tone that is persisting in these markets took over again today, and we sell off. September corn 4.11 1/4, down a nickel and 3/4. These corn 6 points lower, 4.21. March 4.31, down 5 3/4. August soybeans 8.78 3/4, 7 lower. September 7 1/4, down at 8.84 1/4. November 8.96 3/4, off 7.5 cents. September wheat 4.97 1/4, down 6 1/4. Livestock week as well. October live cattle 109.07. 37 cents lower, and the October lean hogs very weak again today, $74 even, down 245. I'm Andy Eubank. Who's Your Ag Today, Indiana's most listened to farm network.
The Fox Business Report brought to you by Modern Kitchen, creating your dream living spaces so you can redesign, remodel, and relax. Modern Kitchen on McKinley, east of Ash Road in Elkhart.
From the Fox Business Network, stocks are mixed in the final hour of trading as investors are starting off the week cautiously as they await the outcome on the Fed's policy meeting this week. They're also focusing on trade negotiations between the U.S. and China, and a busy week for corporate earnings results. After the closing bell, Beyond Meat will be reporting with its stock up beyond belief, about 840% from its $25 IPO price. And shares of Boeing continue to decline, and one of the Dow laggards today after analyst credit agencies Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch released ratings that gave a cautious outlook on the aerospace giant's debt due to the prolonged grounding of its 737 MAX jets. And today it's National Chicken Wing Day, with some restaurant chains offering.
All right, so there's that budget there.
Snack-sized order of wings with the purchase of any order of boneless or traditional wings, dine-in only, while supplies last. And at Hooters, all-you-can-eat wings for $15.99 today. With the Fox Business
43.
This is a last chance alert. It's happening. In just days, Publishers Clearinghouse will award $5,000 a week for life. Enter now at PCH.com, and you could win $5 grand a week after week, for life. This prize is guaranteed to be awarded on August 30th, so don't miss your last chance to win. Enter at PCH.com before it's too late.
Okay, so the budget in South Bend for the year ending in 2016 was $52,655,839. Okay. So that was, see, $52.6 million in the year ending in December 2016. For 2018, it went from 52.6 to 62.7. Okay.
I enjoyed the vodka tortellini also.
So there again, there's no loss of money.
The first time we've been here, and
There's no reduction in revenue.
we'll be coming back. It was awesome. Great experience. Good food, good service.
They have the best Italian food around.
I love the food. It's very good, and it's all home.
17 and 23.
Hi, this is Cosmo. Come in and enjoy some good Italian food like Mama used to make.
Cosmo and Susie's A Bit of Italy restaurant is at the corner of McKinley and Hickory in the Town and Country Shopping Center, Mishawaka. Reservations accepted. Call 25.
Okay, so
warning.
2016 was 52.6. 2017 was 59.9, and 2018 was 62.7. So South Bend is spending more money. They are not spending less.
Or going bankrupt. If you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt, you now have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. For free information, call Credit Answers at 800-970-9166. If you're struggling to
What's up,
pay off
Mom?
your debt,
How you
do
doing?
not let the credit card companies make you think you have to. Call Credit Answers now for free information on how to get out of debt faster than you ever thought possible, without debt consolidation or bankruptcy. We offer a guarantee with no upfront fees, so there's no risk. For free information, visit creditanswers.com or call 800-970-9166. That's 800-970-9166.
Stay and play at Indiana Beach Amusement and Water Park Resort. Play all day on over 45 exciting rides, water slides, and attractions. Experience the thrill of a steel coaster 10 stories tall, or the refreshing splash as you float down the lazy river. Then stay overnight in a campground or cabin. Pay once and come all summer with a play pass, only $44.99. Indiana Beach, a stay and play family tradition. Open daily.
Get ready, Michiana. It's back. And this weekend's August 1st.
What's up, Frank? How you doing?
Or anything with a motor running or not. $2,500 minimum for your trade. Push, pull, or drag it in. August 1st, it all goes down. Cash for Trash is back. Exclusively at R&B Car Company in South Bend and Warsaw. $2,500 minimum for your trade. Over 600 vehicles to choose from. Yes. See dealer for details. Go to rbcarcompany.com.
From the Final Phase Electric Studios. From the first step to the final phase. Industrial and commercial electrical done right. This is Casey Hendrickson.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Phone number 574-2595-95.3. Somebody sent me a text and said, Casey, how much was Boomer, that giant boombox? They were able to save a little scratch, they said, because it was supposed to be $650,000, but it ended up being closer to $600,000. They didn't tell us how much closer to $600,000 it was. So that was $600,000. Again, giant waste of money, 100%. Totally agree with you. And like I said, you know, if they're gonna meet about these issues with spending and how we're going to improve neighborhoods and things like that in South Bend, and they're going to have these 7 talks, and the first one is held in a facility that was just renovated for $4.4 million. And again, I want you to understand, I don't know a lot about that facility. I don't know if those renovations were necessary. I don't know if they were needed. If they were, then that's fine. But if they weren't, then that's $4.4 million that could go to roads, that could go into the grant program for people who can't afford home repairs. You know, those things. Now, there was a little line in there that the Tribune put in there that, once again, they're blaming the state property tax caps for a loss in revenue. There is no loss in revenue in the city of South Bend, okay? If you go back to the year that ended December 31st of 2016, their budget was $52.6 million. The next year, the budget was $59.9 million. And then the last year, it was $62.7 million. So they keep increasing spending, all right? there is no loss of revenue or anything like that because of the state property tax caps. And as I have pointed out before, it is amazing that there are many cities and townships in the state of Indiana that are doing just fine. But South Bend is, of course, everything that we have a problem with is because of those Republicans up in the Capitol taking money away from us with property tax caps. And that is just simply fundamentally and demonstrably untrue based on the last 3 years budget that I was just able to pull up in about 45 seconds or so doing a Google search. But again, it's the easy scapegoat for people who don't want to make tough decisions. And the tough decisions are, maybe you don't spend $4.4 million on a recreational center when you have other things that might be a bigger priority. And again, I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that was wasted money because I don't know enough about the project. But you could look at Elkhart. There was a lot of places, a lot of people who felt that, spending money on the aquatic center may not have been the best move, that sort of thing. But others have said that would be a huge monetary savings. But I'm only using these as examples that other cities have used. I've told you the story before when we used to find projects like this in Las Vegas all the time. And we used to have there's a master plan community. It's called Summerlin. Okay, this is a golf course community. And we don't really have master plan communities here, but a master plan community is like a self-contained, it's not its own city, but it kind of is, right? And it's all designed to be cohesive. You don't ever have to leave if you really don't want to. You have your own stores and that sort of thing. And they're actually really cool, but they can also be isolating. And there was an outdoor pool. Well, they didn't want the outdoor pool to be an outdoor pool. They wanted the outdoor pool to be an indoor pool. So what they did is they tore out the pool and they made it an outdoor pool that could also be indoors. So it had all retractable walls and everything else. And they spent tens of millions of dollars on this project while simultaneously complaining that they didn't have any money for schools and things like that. It's wasteful spending projects like that, which would be nice to have, but maybe you take care of your priorities first. It's kind of like when you're looking at your budget. Do I keep the lights on or do I buy the shiny new rims for my car? Which one do I do? And again, most people are going to tell you to keep the lights on, but when it's not your money and it's other people's money, it's really easy to just kind of waste it and then, pitch a fit about somebody else doing something to you. But you go back the last 3 budgets for the city of South Bend, revenues have increased, spending has increased, period, end of story. Okay? That is them. That has nothing to do with the state. That is them not managing their costs and spending on other projects they should not be spending on. Let's not forget that the mayor gave a bunch of people pay raises that he probably shouldn't give people pay raises for. Anyway, 574-2595, 95.3. That is 2595-953. You can also send a text message to 45364. Please put MNC at the beginning of that message. What else do we have here? Oh, I will get to the soccer team thing. There's a text message about, you're going to talk about U.S. soccer today. Yes, I will, because it's hysterical. I've gone over some of those numbers previously, but yes, I am absolutely going to go over some of those numbers. But first, I do want to talk about, maybe I'll do that next segment. I want to talk about this idiot protester. So, do you remember when everybody would hop into the street? Black Lives Matter did this, Antifa did it, a couple of other groups did this, where they would block freeways and streets by protesting. Remember that? And then we had some videos where people actually got hit by cars because, again, if you're going to act like you're an angry mob, people are going to treat you like an angry mob. Okay, you shouldn't be blocking traffic anyway. We have actually had ambulances blocked, and we have had people die because protesters blocked the road. We know this. This has happened. It is documented. Simply because people want to complain about politics, they let people die, and they let other people who needed medical attention be delayed in getting that attention. But a few people said, you're on the freeway, and I'm not going to let a crowd surround my car. So I'm going to go through you. And they did. All right. So one of those idiots filed a lawsuit. All right. What is her name? On election night in 2016, a California college student was hit by a car while protesting Trump on a highway. Highways are typically where vehicles are, in case you didn't know. We have some young listeners out there. She ultimately tried to sue the school and others for not stopping the protest. So the protester who put herself on the highway in traffic then tried to sue the school because they didn't stop her from going out on the highway. Again, it's like suing the ice cream company because you can't stop shoveling it down your throat. The court dismissed the lawsuit filed by a student hit by a vehicle during an anti-Trump freeway protest. The judge had tossed out a personal injury lawsuit filed by a young woman who sued UC San Diego and others after she was hit by a vehicle after she protested the election of Donald Trump in the middle of a busy San Diego freeway. The San Diego Superior Court has issued a notice of dismissal against Maria Ana Carolla Flores. According to court documents obtained by the College Fix, Flores reportedly a UCSD student at the time in November of 2016, partly blamed campus officials in her lawsuit, alleging resident advisors had effectively organized the protest by encouraging it. Therefore, campus officials shared responsibility for her injuries. Trump derangement syndrome. We got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
Casey Hendrickson.
News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
Your breaking news and weather station.
Served up by the Prime Table Restaurant.
White Bronco chase. Funny. I meant to do that story, I think it was last week is when it came out, but...
Your air conditioning professionals 5-day forecast.
Areas of dense fog this morning could slow down.
It popped back up again today, so I was like, all right, it's still in the cycle, I'll take it.
Into the afternoon, the skies turning mostly sunny this evening. We'll have temperatures warm up right around 78 degrees for that daytime high. For tonight, lows do drop down to 54 underneath those nice clear skies. A great chance to open up the windows and let some fresh air in. For Wednesday, we'll top out right around 76 degrees.
Might be my first official night ride today, depending on how late my dinner goes.
Our temperatures remain below average all the way through Friday. On Saturday, finally making it back to the 82-degree mark. And that sunshine continues throughout the weekend with temperatures remaining very comfortable and the humidity, thankfully, on the low end. In the ABC 57 First Warning Neighborhood Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Kennedy.
The station to turn to when the weather turns bad.
When severe weather strikes in Michiana, focus on protecting yourself and your family. This is ABC 57 meteorologist Tom Coombs. If you're in your car and you see a tornado in the distance, seek shelter in a sturdy building or underground. If you're caught by extreme wind or flying debris, pull over, cover your head, and keep below the windows. If you can safely get lower than the road, leave your car and lie in that area, keeping your head covered. Avoid seeking shelter under bridges.
95.3 MNC, your breaking news and weather station.
Hi, this is Dwayne Miller with Good Faith Management, and I buy houses cash. If you own a house and want to sell it fast and for a fair price, call me at 574-294-5678. I can pay cash and close in as little as 7 days. I buy houses in any country, any price range, and in any location. I am not a realtor or a social...
Oh, it was an old post from March, B-dubs, about 3D printed guns. But they only did it right after I posted about Pete Buttigieg and him not taking care of black people in his own community, and making a reference to South Bend being the 306th largest city, but the 38th largest bedbug infested city. So they couldn't get rid of that because that obviously doesn't violate their terms. So I think they went back to March and did it. Alex brought up a good point earlier that they may potentially, I've got two trolls on Twitter past couple of weeks that probably were just scouring my old tweets trying to find crap. Entirely possible.
Personal growth is the continuous process of developing and understanding yourself to achieve your full potential. At Bethel University, we recognize the busy demands on life and take an integrated faith-based approach to personal growth. Bethel is where students realize...
All right, done with the coffee, now I can crack the monster. Yay! Thank you, David.
Earn your MBA while focused on your personal and spiritual growth at Bethel University. Start with a transfer...
We'll find out tomorrow!
Work experience. Set yourself up to finish faster and save money. Add adult classes, only one night.
I think everybody's going to be gunning for Biden right now. Everybody's going to try and get Biden out as much as they can.
On campus in the small class sizes with individual attention and connect with the professors that take active roles as community and industry leaders in our area. With bachelor's, master's, and online programs at Bethel, we understand because we're growing too. Apply today online at betheluniversity.edu or just text study to 45364.
From the White House to houses all across America, there's one issue that everyone agrees must be dealt with immediately.
Yeah, Pete's on tonight, Alex.
The big drug companies set prices so high, many people have to choose between buying medicine and buying food for their families.
Americans pay more so that other countries can pay less.
Lower prices for other countries while Americans pay twice as much for the exact same medicine? It's absolutely unfair, and it absolutely must end.
We want to bring our prices down to what other countries are paying.
Senator Young, thank you for standing with the president and standing with us to help lower prescription drug prices. While there's still more work to do, AARP strongly supports your continued efforts to stop the greed. Cut prescription drug prices now. Learn more at aarp.org/rx. Paid for by AARP.
Hey everybody, Casey Hendrickson here, and it is time for the Cass County Fair. Tuesday, July 30th at the Cass County Fair is Kiddies Day with free gate admission for children ages 6 to 12. We also have the Youth Horse and Pony, Farm Tractor and Antique Tractor Pull, the Youth and Pee Wee Swine Show, and the NTPA Tractor and Truck Pulls. And don't forget to join me Friday, August 2nd, as I do a live broadcast from 3 until 6 at the Cass County Fair. Go to mycasscountyfair.com.
The Cubs are on.
Get breaking news and weather online on 953mnc.com. From News Talk 95.3 Michiana's News Channel, your breaking news and weather station.
All right, here we go. Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's News Channel. Once again, I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Phone number 574-25-95-95.3. That is 2595-953. You can also send a text message to 45364. Please put MNC at the beginning of that message. A couple of text messages, Casey. I'm just wondering how many of these Black Lives Matter people are actually from South Bend. That is a great question. That is an excellent question, because we do know that some of the groups at the last protest against the police department here that happened a couple of weeks ago, that a lot of them were from out of town. They were not local at all. Just think of how big the boombox will be if our mayor becomes president. Yeah, boomers for everybody. Let's see. Casey, let's guess that Miss Flores is probably an all-expense paid free scholarship per the government. I don't know. I don't know what her situation is like as a college student. But again, if you're dumb enough to protest on a highway, you kind of deserve to get run over. You know, it's just one of those things that you might want to go ahead and not be in front of vehicles when you're doing the protest. All right. So U.S. Soccer. Now, I've given you some of this data. But U.S. Soccer's released a fact sheet, and I've pointed out the revenue, the total earnings and things like that from men and women U.S. Soccer, and also the FIFA organization, because I think it's important that people understand the revenue thing. And I've said, Megan Rapinoe has said one intelligent thing this entire year, and that is, if you want to help women's soccer, watch it more, which is true, because the fact of the matter is less people watch women's sports in the United States than men's sports. And since women are half of the population, they are the biggest demographic that can fix and change that. So if women really want to support women's sports, they have to start watching women's sports. They don't have to give up watching men's sports, but they have to watch more women's sports. Men, I think, are going to naturally be inclined to watch other men play. They can relate. You would assume that the same thing would be of women, in particular soccer, which is in the United States is one of the big female sports, whereas in men, it's not considered one of the top tier sports. The president of the U.S. Soccer Federation released a fact sheet on Monday night alleging that, contrary to claims made as part of a lawsuit, the U.S. women's national team actually lost the federation millions of dollars. Despite this, the president claimed women's soccer players still out-earned their male counterparts. Now, we have talked about the women's players making more than the men's players before. Every 4 years, when the Women's Soccer World Cup is in the news, we are told that the women's team is paid less than the men's team. The claim is used as a rallying cry in the demand for equal pay, even though athletes and other entertainers have vastly different pay structures than average Americans. Still, we are told the women's team is discriminated against because of their gender, because they are paid less than the men's team. Earlier this year, the women's team filed a lawsuit against the USSF alleging pay discrimination. In June, the women's team released information alleging that they brought in more revenue for USSF than the men's team. That was really 1 year.
1 year, okay? And it was barely. The difference was slight. It was $50.8 million to $49.9 million. But it was enough to cast doubt, on those saying that the women's team doesn't bring in as much revenue as the men's team. I saw some news agencies spreading this story as well, particularly local news agencies who don't know how the system works and how it's funded. Now, USSF President Carlos Cordera is pushing back. He wrote an open letter explaining that he directed U.S. soccer staff to conduct an extensive analysis of the past 10 years of U.S. soccer financials. He said the analysis was reviewed by an independent accounting firm, and the analysis showed that the women's team was paid more than the men's team. The fact sheet includes bulleted information about the different pay structures for the men and women's teams. The USSF claimed that it paid women $34.1 million in salaries and game bonuses, and we paid our men $26.4 million, not counting the significant additional value of various benefits that our women's players receive, but which our men do not. For example, the women's team has a guaranteed salary thanks to their collective bargaining agreement with the federation. They receive a base salary of $100,000 each year and an additional salary of $67,500 to $72,500 for playing in the National Women's Soccer League. Male soccer players do not have such an agreement. That agreement means that women's soccer players earn a guaranteed salary of $167,500 to $172,500 every single year. Let's see. By the way, that puts them in the top, I think, 4% of the country. On top of that, they are paid bonuses. The men's team only earns bonuses. These, yes, those bonuses can be larger, but that's because they don't have the guaranteed base salary. The women's team, according to the Federation, also receives benefits including a 401k plan and health insurance, as well as maternity leave and injury protection. The men's team don't get any benefits at all. Finally, the Federation points out that the hypothetical per-game comparison making the media rounds isn't even plausible. Neither the men's nor the women's teams have ever played 20 friendly matches in a year, yet this is what the hypothetical scenario is based on. So again, we've gone over this a little bit before, but he covered all of the benefits and additional packages. The women actually get paid more than the men from the U.S. Soccer Federation. Now, again, when you start getting into the FIFA organization and things like that, things get a little bit different because of the bonus structure, but they also make a heck of a lot more on the men's side than the women's side. Like I said, ladies, if you want to change that, the only way to do that is to watch more women's sports, and I hope you do. We got more coming up, 95.3 MNC.
WTRC FM and HD1. Niles, South Bend, Elkhart.
Uh-oh, what's going on?
There's an accident on 120 east of County Road 17 backed up traffic near Bristol.
Well, okay then.
All 10 Democratic candidates debate tonight, including several struggling to break through, like Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan.
I think it's important for everybody. I wouldn't say do or die, but this is definitely a great opportunity. There's going to be millions of Americans watching who don't know me.
Ryan has been critical of some of his rivals' health care plans, saying it's a big problem to take away private insurance. Health care expected to be a big issue both tonight and tomorrow. Steve.
Jared, President Trump is keeping...
Weird how healthcare is still an issue when Obamacare fixed healthcare.
Elijah Cummings has been there for 26 years. He's really, by far, the highest-ranking politician. He's seen these mayors get thrown out. They're all friends of his.
Let's not forget that Mayor Pugh, who said that we should just tear this whole damn thing down and complain about the smell of the rats. Let's not forget that they raided her house not long ago. And she chose not to run for re-election. I think she stepped down, didn't she?
On behalf of a customer is seeking class action status, and it could be the first of many. Federal investigators say Paige Thompson from Seattle single-handedly hacked into a cloud storage system and got access to all of that data. Capital One says the breach affected 100 million people in the U.S.
The Fox Business Network's Grady Trimble. And at the closing bell on Wall Street, we have the Dow finishing down 23 points at 27,198. NASDAQ off 20, and the S&P 500 gave back 8. This is Fox News.
You had to pay $250 for eardrops? See, Sean, if you would have gone to my doctor, it would have been a few bucks. Because we've had to do the eardrops for the ear infection thing, and it's a few dollars through my doctor. Direct patient care or direct primary care, depending on how you want to phrase it.
This afternoon, the second suspect in the murder of an Army sergeant in Michigan has pleaded guilty. Jeremy Cuellar entered into a...
We've had to do the eardrop thing a few times.
Alleged co-conspirator Camille Hassel was found guilty on first-degree murder by a jury. Cuellar was facing slightly lesser second-degree murder charges. Cuellar and Hassel were caught in a love triangle and plotted to murder Sergeant Tyrone Hassel III in order to collect his Army death benefits and life insurance money. He's facing a minimum of 65 years in prison. That's 95.3 MNC's Carl Stutzman reporting. A 33-year-old man's recovering after he was shot in the upper leg after allegedly forcing his way into a home belonging to another man. This all went down around midnight at a home in the 9700 block of Evergreen Drive in Bridgman. It all stemmed from a domestic situation. Police say the gunshot victim's wife was in the home when the incident occurred. The gun went off when the intruder and the man at the home got into a fight. The principal of Berrien Springs High School has been charged after a motorcycle crash happened earlier this year.
The Cass County prosecutor says Ryan Petsky is accused of driving his motorcycle while drunk, crashing, and carrying a gun while he was intoxicated. This happened on May 27th. Court records show that he had a blood alcohol level of more than twice the legal limit, and at the scene, he admitted to drinking. He was arraigned on July 10th and will face a fine and 8 months of probation after the weapons charge was dismissed. The superintendent of the Berrien Springs School says Petsky is still employed as the principal of the high school.
95.3 MNC's Brooklyn Beatty reporting. And at least 10 customers were said to have run into problems with their vehicles after an incorrect fuel delivery at a gas station in North Liberty. WNDU reports it happened 2 Sundays ago. A driver from the fuel supplier for the Phillips 66 station mistakenly put gasoline in the diesel fuel tank. The station's manager says the fuel supplier will be responsible for costs for repairs.
Great Lakes is on pace for a record number of drownings. There's been so many of them this year.
Now, Home Comfort Experts, your air conditioning professionals' first warning forecasts.
Plenty of sunshine for the rest of the day, with temperatures warming up to 78 degrees. Could have an isolated shower or two, but most of you stay dry. Tonight, underneath clear skies, our temperatures do drop down to 54. And then tomorrow...
Ooh, Rachel Maddow fell to 5th place in the July ratings.
ABC 57, first warning
Ouch.
Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Emily Kennedy.
Right now, partly cloudy and 79 at the 95.3 MNC studios. I'm John.
She bet everything on Russia. Everything.
Is with you on the 95.3 MNC app or your Alexa or Google Home Smart.
She's up a little bit over June, but so is everybody else.
When the sand gets hot, you gotta move fast, like a dog chasing a frisbee. Move just as fast to the Ford Hurry Up and Save sales event. Because for the first time ever, you can get 20% estimated savings on select Ford vehicles. Plus, earn complimentary maintenance through Ford Pass Rewards. Don't let this hot deal on America's best-selling brand pass you by. Get into the Ford Hurry Up and Save sales event. Based on 2010 through 2018 calendar year sales.
So,
within 60 days of purchase through the Ford Pass app,
for the total day ratings for July, Fox News averaged 1.378 million. CNN and MSNBC got 557,000 and 852,000 total.
Offered by Ford dealers nationally. Discount may vary. Dealer determines price. For all offers,
So even together, even if you lump CNN and MSNBC's numbers together, you're at Fox News' numbers. Wow.
Adam here with Weaver Ag and Lawn Equipment. I would like to introduce you to the newest
Hannity, Tucker Carlson, they dominate the ratings. I don't think anybody's surprised about that.
offers JCB agriculture and construction equipment to make your hard work easier, including excavators, backhoes, skid steers, telehandlers, and wheel loaders. Did you know that JCB Teleskid is the first skid steer with a telescopic boom? It lifts higher, reaches further, digs deeper than any skid steer, and is the safest on the market. Curious about JCB products or in the market for a new, innovative, and highly efficient machine to replace that older equipment you're currently running?
She's still pulling in 2.487 million people per night, though.
We've got got you covered.
she's just in 5th place.
For location information and
And 1, 2, 3, 3 of the spots
subscribe to our YouTube channel.
ahead of her are Fox News. I don't know what the 4th place one is, though. It doesn't say in the article.
Comes to get done.
From the Final Phase Electric Studios, from the first step to the final phase, industrial and commercial electrical done right. This is Casey Hendrickson on News Talk 95.3 Michiana's News Channel, your breaking news and weather station.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Phone number 574-2595. 95.3. That is 2595-953. And I would also like to thank our sponsor, Second Amendment Arms and Range, located in New Carlisle. If you mention me, you get half off your range time. Go to secondamendmentarms.net for more info. 120 east of County Road 17. There is a wreck backing up traffic there near Bristol. Again, that's 120 east of County Road 17 near Bristol. You want to avoid that if you can. And if you have any updates, please let us know at 574-2595-953. All right, breaking news study. Well, it's really not breaking news. I should probably say groundbreaking because it's 4 days old. So anyway, a recent study funded by the National Institute of Justice and conducted by anti-gun researcher Philip Cook takes an interesting approach to the question of how long criminals possess a firearm before they are arrested and charged with a firearm-related crime. It is well known and acknowledged even in this study that for firearms recovered by law enforcement, many years typically pass between the first retail purchase and the misuse of the firearm. The average time to crime in the United States is over 9 years, according to the latest ATF data. Now, what that means is, okay, people keep telling you that there is an issue with background check. Well, there is an issue with background checks, but they're distorting the issue with background checks. That what is happening is criminals are going out there premeditating murder, and then they're going to the store and they're buying the gun, and they're able to get it super easy. It's like buying a pack of gum, which, of course, is not true. So on average, you'll be a law-abiding citizen, you'll purchase your firearm, and then about 9 years later, if you're going to commit a crime, you will with the gun, okay? So about a decade. Basically, you'll have the gun for 10 years or so, be a law-abiding citizen, and 9 to 10 years, and then you'll commit a crime. So this study does not examine the near decade between the legal retail sale of a traced firearm and its association with illegal activity. It does use a survey of Chicago inmates to examine the last link or the elapsed time from the transaction that actually provided the offender with the gun in question. For the record, they usually go to Chicago inmates for these gun things because there is a large number of gun crimes in Chicago. So the population that is incarcerated in Chicago has this really high portion of them that are involved in criminal activity with the use of a firearm. So they can get a lot of data from them. That's why you see so many of these studies using Chicago inmates. It's also where the study, they asked the inmates in Chicago if they got it at a gun store or a gun show. And of course, the answer was no, they didn't. All right. It is rare to see a study published that echoes our message enforcing existing gun laws, prosecute criminals, but that is just what this study concludes. Keep in mind, this was done by an anti-gun activist. More precisely, the study concludes that more effective enforcement of the laws governing gun transactions may have a quick and pervasive effect on gun use in crime. That is because the authors found that the duration of the last link is about 2 months. Inmates surveyed reported that most of the firearms possessed at their arrest were obtained by buying or trading from a friend or acquaintance. Few obtained their firearms from a gun store. So this confirms the findings of a previous study where they would have had to pass a background check, and none of the responders mentioned a gun show or the internet as a source. So again, gun show loophole doesn't exist, all right? At one point in time, it was much more common for those private transactions to happen in mass, but now with insurance and things like that, it's basically become very, very difficult for that to happen. This aligns with prior federal surveys of inmate populations. Criminals break the law to illegally acquire firearms, okay? There's more. Other findings include state laws that require law-abiding gun owners to register their firearms were of no help, as naturally the criminal who obtained the firearm years after the legal purchase did not register their typically illegally possessed firearm. Also, unsurprisingly, most or all of the transactions that provided inmates with guns were illegal, in that they violated state or federal regulations. The bottom line is all or almost all of the respondents were disqualified from acquiring or possessing a gun in Illinois at the time of their current arrest, yet most of them had extensive involvement with guns at the time. So, consider yourself shocked and or awed. Criminals who acquire firearms in order to commit a crime do so illegally. They don't go to gun stores, they don't go to gun shows, and they certainly don't get them off of Craigslist. It doesn't happen. So, I don't know what else to say. You got a bunch of people running around trying to tell you that this is how people get their guns, and that is, of course, completely and totally untrue. The one who shot up the Gilroy Festival in California, he legally purchased it in Nevada. Now they're making a big deal that it would have been illegal to purchase it in California. So what? He legally purchased it in Nevada. And then, because he was angry, he decided to shoot at a bunch of people. And unfortunately, some people died as a result of it. He's a twisted dude. And I'm willing to bet as we learn more, there's going to be a lot of warning signs. There's going to be a lot of things that we probably should have reacted to that we didn't react to. But you're never going to get rid of all of these things. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's give a slow clap for gun control advocate finally admitting that criminals do not abide by the laws. This is the Daily Caller writing this. More enforcement of the existing laws needed. The firearms and ammunition industry knows this, supports several campaigns to help law enforcement do their jobs and to help our retailers, ranges, and manufacturers on the front lines of preventing criminals from obtaining firearms. We do not support adding more laws into citizens who already know the existing laws. Okay, so again, I know you're shocked and or awed by that, but criminals don't obey the law when purchasing a firearm specifically to conduct criminal activity. It's illegal for them to possess, and the transaction to obtain was also illegal. They don't go to gun shows, gun stores, and they certainly don't go to the internet. All right, new update on the border. A report from Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, shows that many Central Americans who arrived at the U.S.-Mexico border seeking asylum are now giving up and going back to their home countries. A reporter from the Texas Tribune asked how many of the Central American migrants at the migrant processing facility in Mexico were giving up on their asylum applications, and nearly all of them indicated that they were throwing in the towel. Now remember, this is a part of that new deal that the president got with Mexico, that Mexico's now going to hold a lot of them because we don't have the space. So a lot of them will be held in Mexico. They can still apply to asylum in the United States, but they have to do so from the Mexican side of the border. So now that they can't get into the United States and they know that their asylum claim is a bunch of bunk, they're turning around and they're going home, according to this reporter for the Texas Tribune. Now, I suppose these people could be lying. Okay, it's entirely possible. The Tribune attributed the reversals from migrants to the policy of the Trump administration to make asylum seekers stay in Mexico while their application was being processed. Now, the reason that this is going to turn many of them off is because, again, over was it 95% or something like that? I think it might have been higher than that. Was it 98%? Don't come back for their court hearing because they don't actually qualify for asylum and they know it. So they fill out the asylum claim and they think full well that they're going to be released into the United States. And once they're there, they'll just disappear. They won't go back. They won't show up for the asylum claim or the asylum hearing. They won't adhere to the removal orders. And then finally, there will a self-removal order, and then the removal order will come through. And they just full-blown, kind of disappear into our society. And they know that if they're in Mexico, they don't have a chance to disappear into the United States because they're on the Mexican side of the border, and they're going to have their hearing, and they're just going to go back home because they know that they don't qualify for asylum. One migrant told the Tribune that conditions in Mexico were actually more dangerous than those he left in Honduras because he didn't know anyone in Mexico who would help him. We're afraid and we want to go home, even though we're scared to return to our country. If Honduras is dangerous, Mexico is worse. It is more dangerous. So not all of them were giving up. Those escaping the turmoil in Venezuela and Cuba were among the migrants who were willing to not give up. And of course, we know that we just passed the temporary asylum claim for Venezuelans. So the Venezuelans got a good shot getting into the United States, by the way. We got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
Casey Hendrickson.
News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
Your breaking news and weather station.
Weather served up by the Prime Table in Niles. 25 years of exceptional food, tremendous service, and great people. Visit Prime Table today.
Now, Home Comfort Experts, your air conditioning professionals' 5-day forecast.
Areas of dense fog this morning could slow down the commute. Otherwise, we'll see that start to clear on out late this morning into the afternoon. The sky's turning mostly sunny this evening. We'll have temperatures warm up right around 78 degrees for that daytime high. For tonight, lows do drop down to 54 underneath those nice clear skies. A great chance to open up the windows and let some fresh air in. For Wednesday, we'll top out.
Why does she always say that crap?
With mostly sunny skies, and really that
I don't like my windows open.
continues through the rest of the work week. Our temperatures remain below average all the way through Friday. On Saturday, finally making it back to the 82-degree mark. And that sunshine continues throughout the weekend with temperatures remaining very comfortable and the humidity, thankfully, on the low end. In the ABC 57 First Warning Neighborhood Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Holly Kennedy.
The station to turn to when the weather turns bad.
Severe weather season is here. This is ABC 57 meteorologist Tom Coombs. If you're home when a tornado strikes, your best protection is to go to the basement and under a heavy table or workbench, or cover yourself with a mattress or sleeping bag. If there is no basement, get to the lowest floor of a small center room like a bathroom or closet, or under the stairs. Crouch low to the floor, face down, and cover your head with your hands.
95.3 MNC, your breaking news and weather station.
Far too many headlines stress delaying Social Security benefits. By the time you realize you can end up giving 20 to 30% of your benefits back to the IRS, it's too late. Take action. Join me, best-selling author, TV and radio host Casey Weed, for the Social Security Summit live via webinar on Wednesday, July 31st at 8:30 a.m., 12 or 7 p.m. You'll learn how a growing trend of successful families are taking Social Security.
Oh, by the way, Dean, my gauges, that check engine light thing, my gauges on either side are not working.
Strategies to get these hard-earned dollars back.
So whatever's happening, I've been driving the car, and drives as awful as it normally does, but
Join us Wednesday, July 31st. Every attendee will receive a customized Social Security analysis, and there's no cost, but space is limited. Register now at SaveYourBenefitsIndiana.com or call 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559.
Investment advisory services may be offered through Howard Bailey Securities, LLC, a registered investment advisor.
Summer is finally here, which means it's time to get off of the couch and saddle up and answer the call of the road.
ban crime now.
Answer that call then this Wednesday, August 7th, at Indian Motorcycles Wild West Bike Night. Join me, Casey Hendrickson, for a fun evening with the incredible Johnsons performing live music. There will also be a beer garden and, of course, food. While you're there, don't forget to check out the lineup of brand new Royal Enfield motorcycles that Elkhart Indian is carrying now. With summer officially here, it's time to get a little wild. Wild West, that is, at the Elkhart
black
Indian
tape, yeah.
Motorcycles
I don't need any black tape. They're just black now. You mean the check engine light?
Just let me know that you're coming. Text WILD to 455.
So I've got like, I think one's my oil, and then one's my battery or something like that on the sides, and those are all pitch black.
International LLC. Always wear a helmet, eye protection and protective clothing, and obey the speed limit. Never ride under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
Looking for a cool way to get a new home comfort system without breaking the bank? The Advantage program from BW Cook Service Experts gets you a high-quality home comfort system.
Woo, damn, got the shivers.
There's no money down,
Came out of nowhere.
cash repairs, and seasonal tune-ups are free. Right now, get a new home comfort system as low as $119 a month and no additional charges ever. Call BW Cook Service Experts today at 866-EXPERTS or visit bwcook.com. See website for license details.
At Menards, nobody beats our prices and selection, so you always save big money on home improvement. Save on Chamberlain garage door openers. A half-horsepower chain drive model is $159.99. With a battery backup and built-in Wi-Fi to keep you connected and protected is only $229.99. Save on quality
Correct.
garage door openers.
They are completely dead. Those gauges are gone. I meant to send you a picture a couple of weeks ago. But, yeah, so my mileage is working. My other big gauge is working. It's just the two small ones on the side. So maybe it's just a fuse? I don't know.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Phone number 574-2595-95.3. That is 2595-953. Also want to remind you that a listener called this in a little while ago. 120 east of County Road 17. There's a wreck that has backed up traffic near Bristol. Again, 120 east of County Road 17 near Bristol was backed up. Thank you for that. And I also want to thank R&B Car Company, locations in South Bend and Warsaw. R&B Car Company are your used car experts. So the Border Patrol has announced today they used rapid DNA to test a rapid DNA test to catch an illegal immigrant from Honduras who was using someone else's 2-year-old to hopefully get released. Now, remember, we had some migrants tell some reporters that there were people who were trying to offer them money for their kids. They're trying to buy their kids because it was going to allow them to get into the United States. Because, again, politicians and activists who don't know a thing or don't care a thing about these individuals are out there saying that the kids have to be released. But as we had heard before, release them where? Where are we supposed to put them? We don't know where they're supposed to go. We don't know who many of these children belong to. So a Border Patrol agent holds a migrant child at the Central Processing Facility in Donna, Texas. Behind the photo, on July, this is the Border Patrol's Twitter. They're posting a photo of a Border Patrol agent, a Latina woman holding a little kid. On July 17th, McAllen U.S. Border Patrol agents encountered a group of 12 people comprised of family units and unaccompanied children who turned themselves in. Record checks revealed that an individual traveling with his alleged son had 2 previous immigration arrests in El Paso just in the past month. Given the recent apprehensions and the age of the child, agents requested the assistance of HSI to administer a rapid DNA test. The test revealed that there is no child-parent relationship. The man admitted that he was not the child's father, but knew the mother and had permission to take the child. The man admitted that it is common knowledge in Honduras that if you bring a child, you will be released. So again, in Honduras, the word is out. If you bring a kid with you, you're going to be able to be released and led into the United States. So people are handing their kids over. Now, he says it was voluntary, but who actually knows? It may not have been voluntary. So then we have this from Summit News. 2 Somali refugees were arrested after the FBI uncovered a plot for them to join ISIS abroad or conduct an attack inside the United States. 2 very strong Protestant names, Ahmed Mahad Mohammed and Abdi Yemeni Hussein, again, very strong ethnocentric Protestant names, were arrested for conspiring to provide material support and resources to ISIS, which basically doesn't exist much anymore, a designated foreign terrorist organization, according to the DOJ. Mohammed had obtained lawful permanent residency within the U.S., and Hussein remained a refugee. These suspects had been in communication with an undercover FBI agent whom they thought was an ISIS supporter and had purchased airline tickets to travel to Egypt with the intention to travel into Sinai and join ISIS. If they were able to travel for any reason, the pair had planned to carry out an attack inside the United States. Okay? So they wanted to go join ISIS via Egypt, but if they couldn't get out for whatever reason, they were just going to carry out an attack here. FBI agents arrested the suspects right before they tried to board a flight at Tucson International Airport in Arizona. I'm sure that was an interesting sight for the people who are getting ready to get onto that plane. Hey, why are they arresting those people who are going to get on my plane? Oh, they're terrorists. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll take the next flight. Thank you. I'm not going to get on this one. President Trump tweeted about the arrest this morning, commenting Somali refugees arrested in Tucson on the way to Egypt. They were in touch with an agent posing as a terrorist. One of them stated the best wake-up call is Islamic State to get victory or another 9/11. Get smart, people, the president tweeted out. And again, you know, he's kind of pointed this stuff out repeatedly. There are huge gaps everywhere in our immigration system. We have run into dozens of refugees who have now been caught trying to carry out terrorist attacks or plotting to join terrorist organizations from this country. And that's what happens when you take people in and you don't properly vet them. Now, some of them are properly vetted, but they get here and they get radicalized anyway, or they were radicalized, but they didn't have anything in their background that would have been alarming. And then you have people like in San Bernardino. The wife never should have been allowed in the United States whatsoever. She had numerous anti-American pro-terrorist tweets and social media posts. I shouldn't say tweets because I don't think it was Twitter, but social media posts that she had put up on the internet that we missed. We didn't look at them. We just simply did not see them. Had we seen that, we probably would not have let her in the United States, and perhaps San Bernardino may not have happened. Okay, but you can have Pete Buttigieg and a whole host of other, nonsensical, intellectually lazy and dishonest people run around and say, no, it's far right white nationalist terrorists that are the bigger threat in the United States. No, that is demonstrably false, and I have debunked that many times, and so has, frankly, the federal government. So if you look at the mass public shootings, the vast majority of them hold a left-wing ideology. The second category is those who are not politically aligned, and then followed by people who are politically aligned with the right and or white nationalists, even though those should be separate categories altogether. If you look at the number of convictions, 2/3 of the terror convictions since 9/11 have been jihadist convictions. They were not nationalist, white supremacist, American homegrown stuff. They were in support of the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, or some other terrorist organization. That's 2/3 of the convictions, ladies and gentlemen. So the idea that the far right or white nationalists are the predominant threat to the United States is preposterous and completely demonstrably untrue. And yet you got Pete Buttigieg and other people running around saying it because it sounds good, and people who are too lazy to look it up don't actually bother looking it up because it sounds good. They just want to go ahead and support their own preconceived notion. Speaking of terrorists, okay, let's run to Antifa. You got Ted Cruz and others that are proposing that Antifa finally be declared a terrorist organization at a federal level. They are in New Jersey. The mayor of Berkeley, who is a huge liberal, said that they should be considered a street gang. And frankly, either of those descriptors are accurate, but technically a domestic terrorist organization is an accurate description of Antifa. So here's a report. Antifa, who just had a terrorist attack, and they celebrated this guy, Antifa plans a terror campaign and a siege of El Paso, Texas to push border resistance. Did you know that the Border Patrol had another mad rush at one of the facilities? I think it was in El Paso recently, where agents were injured. Okay, they tried to do another mob rush of the border to try and overwhelm Border Patrol and get through into the United States, and they were repelled again. Again, the media doesn't cover this stuff. Why would they bother? The far-left Antifa movement is reportedly planning a terror campaign and a siege of El Paso, Texas, in an attempt to raise awareness of alleged abuses at the U.S.-Mexico border. I mean, maybe abuses like taking somebody's 2-year-old child and pretending that they're yours in order to get yourself into the United States. Maybe that would be considered an abuse. Not to them, though. The so-called border resistance exercise involves a military training tour that will converge on a 10-day siege in El Paso, Texas, according to a tweet Monday from Andy Ngo, who is a journalist, independent journalist, who he does work for Quillette, I think, right? But he writes about Antifa quite a bit, so maybe he's not totally independent. I think he works for Quillette. Anyway, the promotional image shows border enforcement officers being killed and government property firebombed. Organizers are asking for white comrades to pay for others. So if you are a white Antifa member, you are supposed to pay the way of a non-white Antifa member because you're white, and they're not. But again, they show murdered federal Border Patrol agents and also firebombed government property. That's what they show on their pamphlets advertising this thing. Nice, right? So it looks like they went from just attacking people with sticks and stuff and throwing water, throwing milkshakes, although the milkshake thing was more overseas, but it did happen here a couple of times, putting the quick-drying cement inside of a soda can and throwing some bottles with urine in it. That's what Antifa has been doing all of these years. And the pepper spray thing, they did that. And then, of course, they started getting involved in actually just, firebombing places and shooting it up. And now they're actively, there was the calls for stabbing people. Remember that? The Antifa group that was in, I think it was Washington State, had called for people to be stabbed to death. We did have the one Antifa member stab a police horse. I mean, that happened too. So it's probably about time to label them as something, but they're clearly not a peaceful, pacifist organization. They are absolutely a danger, whether it's a gang, you want to call them that, or you want to call them a domestic terrorist organization. They seem to meet that definition. whatever it is, something's got to be done. We got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
This is Michiana's breaking news and weather station.
News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel at 95.3MNC.com. I'm John Zimney, the MNC News Center. Among our top stories this afternoon, a 22-year-old woman's accused of burning an 8-month-old boy with a lighter. This happened back in May. Dara Nicole was staying at a home on Lawrence Street in South Bend. 3 kids also lived at the home, including the baby. 2 adults accused Nicole of harming the child. A day later, she came to the home with her boyfriend and a fight ensued. ABC 57 News reports she was arrested and taken to the St. Joseph County Jail on a charge of battery on a person less than 14
She
years
burned
old.
the kid and came back
Early next month.
to fight about the kid.
Dillinger is going to be exhumed from his Indianapolis grave.
And much like the man himself, there is a lot of mystery behind why. No reason was given as the nephew of John Dillinger, Michael Thompson,
What?
filed a request back in June to dig him up. However, there was no reason given. All we know is that the body will be reburied in mid-September. Dillinger and his gang has been credited with robbing 20 banks and 4 police stations.
Well, that's interesting. What the hell are they digging Dillinger up for?
Enemy number 1.
And why won't they tell anybody?
1934, when federal authorities tracked him to a theater in Chicago.
Huh.
Since then, his grave has become a popular stop for tourists.
That's 95.
That's interesting. So a relative of Dillinger wants to dig him up, won't tell anybody why, and then he'll be reburied later. Very interesting.
Corruption and the graft in Baltimore is probably the greatest in our country, or one of them. Wait, now, he's in charge of an oversight committee. All I'm saying is, take your oversight.
He ain't Jimmy Hoffa.
You'll learn a lot.
President outside the White House.
You wonder if there's like some kind of a rumor, maybe that he's got something on his person that would lead to a treasure, or maybe they're doing a documentary and they're trying to tie him to other things or clear him and exonerate him of other things. I don't know. That's interesting. But they're not telling anybody why. Huh. Ooh, there's a Slipknot contest happening on the Bear right now. And I am not aware of it.
Home comfort experts, your air conditioning professionals' first warning forecasts.
Plenty of sunshine for the rest of the day.
Man, somebody won 3 minutes ago and everybody's still texting it.
Shower or 2, but most of you stay dry. Tonight, underneath clear skies, our temperatures do drop down to 54. And then tomorrow, plenty of sunshine from sunup to sundown with a high of 76. And the ABC 57 First Warning Neighborhood Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emma Kennedy.
Yeah, I saw that. Germany doesn't know a damn thing about Antifa, though. There's a lot of... Oh, they could be cloning Dillinger. That's interesting. There's a lot of people in the U.S. who don't know anything about Antifa. A former Antifa member with campus reform actually went around on campus, I don't know which school, but was asking them if they thought that Antifa was a domestic terrorist organization. And again, he used to be a member, and he gave the definition of domestic terrorism and asked people if they agreed that Antifa was a domestic terrorist organization. Most of them said yes. And based on the definition, they would meet that definition. So there were some people in, I think it was Seattle, who were wearing MAGA hats, were offering free hugs, and they got egged and assaulted. Yeah, the Antifa one? Yeah, do that. That was a good video. Because, I mean, what we have seen over and over again with the campus reform videos is that when you actually educate people on what really happened and what was really said, they have a different perspective. The issue with human beings isn't their ability to analyze and decipher information. The problem is they aren't given the right information because we're in our bubbles. And once that's challenged, then we typically will make the right call. But if you don't ever get the information, you don't ever get the information. And then there are just those deranged people that can't be helped no matter what, on both sides. Oh, Kathy just got nailed with the censor bot.
There you go, Kathy. I saved you.
Does this sound familiar? You have a toothache, haven't been to a dentist in years, and money is tight. You don't want
Well, Antifa's been attacking people for years now. Let's not forget, when Based Stickman showed up, that was the first time that any group had showed up prepared to resist an Antifa violent event. And they did. Antifa came running in, and Based Stickman had that big thwack on top of that Antifa dude's head. And that was the end of it. The lights are completely out at Cleveland in 933.
We can discuss payment plans that fit your budget. We're here to listen and provide the right dental solution to meet your needs. Don't wait to take care of your dental pain. Call 1-800-TOOTHACHE or visit
I hope they're working on a Bernie one now, because that would be friggin' hysterical.
Personal growth is the continuous process of developing and understanding yourself.
They could quote the former mayor, Pugh. They could quote Bernie Sanders. They could quote, I think Obama's got some quotes about Baltimore. They could do a whole bunch of stuff on it.
And earn your MBA while focused on your personal and spiritual growth at Bethel University. Start with a transfer-friendly approach. Find credits for prior learning and even work experience.
Well, they are fascist, and what's funny is that, you know,
only one night a week and finish courses in only 7 weeks.
when it's weird because they claim that they're anti-fascist, which would actually put them on the far political right, yet they call themselves leftists. So, because fascism is a leftist ideology, it's not a politically right ideology, it's a far left ideology.
Because we're growing too. Apply today online at betheluniversity.edu or just text study to 45364.
What if this was a loved one?
Someone's trying to break into my home.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure Crowder will address it.
I'll stay on the line with you until they arrive. What good'll that do?
It's your single source for personal protection. Stop in today for the largest selection of handguns, AR rifles, ammunition, accessories, and personal protection solutions. Over 2,000 guns in stock today with the best prices, guaranteed. CX Gun, located in downtown Goshen. Online at cxgun.com. Protect yourself and loved ones today at CX Gun.
Get double the deal for double the restaurants at half the price. Coming this Thursday, My Deals Michiana will have a deal. Good for both the Tippecanoe Restaurant and Studebaker Brewing Company, both located in the historic Studebaker Mansion. The Tippecanoe Place and
Does Studebaker Brewing Company even make good beer?
dining and craft beer that South Bend has to offer.
I've never had it.
For the ultimate experience. Plus, with 2 $25 gift certificates for the price of one, you can fill up twice for half the price. Grab yours this Thursday at MyDealsMichiana.com.
From the final phase.
Here we go.
From the first step to the final phase. Industrial and commercial electrical done right.
This is the white Zero Ultra. It's pretty much the only one that I really like. It's nice and sweet. And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Phone number 574-25-95-95.3. That is 2595953. Traffic lights are out at Cleveland in 933. Traffic is backing up over there because, again, four-way stops are difficult for people. So, again, traffic lights out at Cleveland and 933. Traffic is starting to become ugly over in that area. Avoid if you can. 574-25-95-95.3. All right, so situation in Baltimore. Now, the president is doubling down on what he had said about Elijah Cummings in Baltimore. And here's the thing. You know, we had gone over this yesterday in the first hour of the program. It's its own podcast, which you can go get at theburningtruth.us. Everything the president said about Baltimore is accurate, okay? At the base of any of this, you have to admit that. Everybody knows that Baltimore is a rat-infested city. Everybody knows that Baltimore is a corrupt city. Everybody knows that Baltimore has a high crime rate. It's the highest murder rate in the country, okay? Everybody knows that. Everybody watched Baltimore in Elijah Cummings' district burn during the Freddie Gray riots. Everybody saw that in the country. We all watched the CVS burn down, okay? Baltimore itself, they sell bumper stickers with a giant rat with the words Balt on it, and then they have Charm City underneath it. It is a joke within the city itself. Yesterday, I went over how if you put your trash out before the trash comes, you get a citation, you get a fine, because they don't want you putting the trash out. They collect trash at night, by the way, there. They don't collect it in the morning, so you can't go out there, put your trash out at night, and then have them pick it up in the morning. They pick it up at night, so you put your trash out right before the garbage truck comes, so that way the rats don't get it. The Fox 25, I think, today, it might be Fox 25, that's the Baltimore station. They were doing a segment on President Trump's tweets on Baltimore, and during the live shot, a bunch of rats were murdering some trash. Okay, in the live shot. It's an absolute perfect illustration of what is going on. Okay, this is the case in Baltimore. The mayor, Pugh, we played you audio of Mayor Pugh from September of 2018 actually going to some of these row house neighborhoods and complaining about the rats, complaining about the state of the trash and the state of the homes and how it should all be torn down, she said. This should all be torn down. You remember the feds raided her mansion not long ago, the mayor's mansion. They raided it, right? So a lot of people, Baltimore is a corrupt place. This is, again, it's well known, right? So when the president goes out there and he finally responds to numerous attacks from Elijah Cummings. You know, Pete Buttigieg yesterday said, when the president tweets about Baltimore, he's just dividing the country. Was Elijah Cummings' comments over the past 3.5 years, were they dividing the country, Pete? Where Elijah Cummings falsely accused the president of being a racist like you did after you've been falsely accused of being a racist now for 8 years? Was Elijah Cummings dividing the country when he was falsely accusing the president of breaking the law and conspiring with a foreign government to somehow overthrow the election system in the United States of America, which has been completely debunked? Was Elijah Cummings dividing the country then? Was Elijah Cummings dividing the country when he's accused every previous Republican nominee or candidate or president of being racist also? Every single one? Was he dividing the country then? And Elijah Cummings has been spitting fire at President Trump this entire time. And finally, the president responds after Elijah Cummings was saying, hey, he was being, as the president put it, a bully towards the Border Patrol. And again, the Border Patrol is predominantly Latino. They're not white. There's this myth on the political left that the Border Patrol is a bunch of white Aryans who run around in Nazi paraphernalia and attack brown people. That's not who they are. The vast majority of them are Latino. But we've gone over the demographics of that before. But Elijah Cummings, I guess, is allowed to say that because he's Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings' wife is embroiled in a huge scandal where she may have committed all sorts of fraud. But the news media is not focusing on that. The local media is not focusing on that. Instead, they're focusing on tweets that were factually and demonstrably correct about the city and trying to make it into something else. In 2018, do you know how much money the federal government, that would be the Trump administration, do you know how much money the federal government gave to the city of Baltimore in 2018 alone? Any idea? Joe, you're an expert on this. Any idea?
A lot of money.
$16 billion.
That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Okay, the budget for South Bend is $62.7 million. Did you hear me correctly? The budget for South Bend is $62.7 million. Okay. $16 billion went to the city of Baltimore, which has 6 times the population. $16 billion is way more extrapolated out than a redoubling in, what 600